Good evening, everybody. We're just giving it a few more minutes for people to log on. Thank you for joining us this wonderful evening for the Fireside Chat with Funso and Doherty. Just give it 2-3 more minutes. Thank you for being on time. You should all be able to see the program of today's events on your screen. Thank you all. You're very, very welcome. We are so grateful for everybody turning up in good time. Fantastic. Good evening. Thank you, everybody. You should have the program on screen. Gives you an idea of what we need to run through today. Excellent. Thank you all for joining us this wonderful, here in the UK, we say bank holiday weekend, but I guess it's the May Day holiday, Workers' Day holiday in most places in the world. So I'll start by saying good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're joining from. You are all very welcome to this Fireside Chat with Funso and Doherty. My name is Titilola Adeleye Neitubiele, QCOGA 86 set, and I will be moderating today's event, which is an initiative of the Queen's College Old Girls 86 Steering Committee. So a little bit about me, for those of you that don't really know much about me. So since leaving Queen's College in 1986, I went on to study applied physics with electronics at the University of Lagos, after which I worked at Inlax Computers, also known as Unisys, for a few years, before traveling to the UK in 1998 to have my first child. Yes, that was the reason for coming. But guess what? I'm still here 23, 24 years later. So today, by the special grace of God, I am the managing partner of GBM Consultancies Limited, a leadership training and consulting firm here in the UK. a certified Maxwell leadership coach, trainer, and speaker, and behavioral consultant. I have a particular interest in helping women develop their leadership abilities, communicate and collaborate at a world-class level so they can grow their individual and business results. I am happily married to Titilola Adeleye, and we have 3 wonderful children. Fantastic. So you've got the program on there, but one of my favorite reads is a book by Simon Sinek. It is Start With Why. So I'd like to start today's program by asking our audience, all 60-something, 50-something of you, why are you here today? Just type it in the chat. Why are you here? What do you hope to walk away with today? Yes, thank you. Ogugwa. Yes, they look fantastic. Some say it's good to be here. I'm glad to be here as well. But why are you here? What do you want to, what is the hope? What is your hope for joining today's program? Are you just here because you got the link? You were told to register? You just want to hear another speech by Funso? Yes, I know he is good with those speeches, yes. But why are you really here? Fantastic. Yes, those replies are coming in fast and furious. To listen and to hear to Funso on policy. Good. Lara says, hear their agenda for governance. Fantastic. Temitayo, to support our QCOB for a better Lagos. Yes. To see a way clear through the quagmire called Nigeria. Fantastic. Yes, we all have different reasons for coming here. Curious to know precisely what we're up to. Yes, we'll tell you a little bit about that. Here's to be assured that there is hope for our nation. So fantastic. Abby says the Doherty is just oozing with love right now. Oozing with you, my girl. Okay. To be part of the much needed change, to learn more. There's so many reasons. Each one of us has come here because we have hope. We want to hear from our brother and our sister. That is why you are here. However, I also want to tell you why we have put together this program, tell you why we are here. So a little backstory. Before I became a coach and trainer, I spent 15 years prior as an IT program manager, leading teams across different transformations in different continents. And drawing from that, I recall that whenever we want to put in a proposal, a business case, we would usually seek to put forward 3 or more options. And the option, so those 3 options would be what we wanted to really go with, or the one that we knew nobody was going to sign off. And of course, you would always put do nothing. That was always a 3rd option. And it had to be in the business case, okay? So in the same vein, we have 3 or more options today before us in the next elections as well. You could opt to do nothing, absolutely nothing. Or you could opt to go the usual way because, that's the most likely outcome. We all have this thing in our minds that there is this party that always wins the elections. And so we have to back them because, you want to back the winning horse. Or option number 3, the reason why we are here today, to consider another option. There's always more than one way if we actually give it the time of day. So today, the class of 86, we join with our sister already to connect with our larger group of Blue sisters. And of course, the QCOBs, with whom we share bonds, especially our OGQC sisters. We share bonds no future years can sever, to present an option in the person of her darling husband, Mr. Funso Doherty, as a gubernatorial candidate of Lagos State under the auspices of ADC in the 2023 elections. You can see, I don't know if you can see my dress very well, but I'm trying to put on the ADC colors, and I hope I'm representing very well. So we know that 1 is too small a number to achieve greatness. And the success of 1 is the success of all. We are here to say we can be more. That is our slogan. We can be more. We are here to share our belief. So we're inviting you to come. Journey with us in the next few minutes that we are together. Please feel free to drop your questions, your comments, suggestions in the chat, and we will treat each one of those with the importance that it deserves. Thank you very much, and you're welcome. So, I'm being told we have family, friends. You're all very, very, very welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in today. So next, I'd like to call on Mr. Dapo Oyinloye, a member of the Funso Doherty for Governors Steering Committee, to give us his welcome remarks. Over to you, sir. Mr. Dapo Oyinloye.
Very much. Yes, if
Dapo, you're breaking. We can not hear you clearly. Dapo?
Okay, thank you very much. I was trying to move to my laptop so I can change my background. Unfortunately, it was cracking. Move to my laptop. Yes, so apologies for that.
No, please
so
go
quickly,
on.
Sorry?
Feel free to go on. We can see you, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So quickly, my name is Dapo Oyinloye. I work with Funso Doherty's strategic team. And from the beginning, honestly, I felt and I was satisfied with the timing of his decision, because we had, been going around asking questions. So what next? And we had some problems staring us in the face, and the reality was something that we could not run away from anymore. So I was interested in working with people who were courageous enough to sacrifice and take the decision to get in the political space, by vying for office. So after sharing ideas about governance, the state of the nation, just discussing solutions, with Funso, I found out that he was more passionate about the state than I'd even earlier thought from what I knew about him, So one, it was a shock, but it was a good surprise, very good surprise, because, I spoke to a lot of people, and when I was asking about the last two elections and why people voted for certain candidates or why some did not vote, a lot of the people I spoke to said, look, who are the alternatives? We need options, So people just kept saying, so who do we vote for if we don't like what we see? We need to. So in answering that question, in solving that problem, I think is one of the things that made Mr. Doherty, take this decision. And to be honest, I mean, it's something that we don't even have to debate too much, because if things are going a certain way and they continue that way and it's not what we desire, then we need to change things. We need to change leadership. We need to change the way people run government. We need to start behaving like people who want to make progress as a people, not just talk. This is the sacrifice. And this is why we are happy to present our candidate, Mr. Doherty, someone who definitely has a better idea about what it means, you know, to have the responsibility to run a state as a servant of the people. It is just so simple. Honestly, it is not too difficult to understand. It is just that we have not seen a lot of leaders give us what they promise. And so when they give us little, we praise them to high heavens that they've done so much compared to what they can actually do. So looking at things from a realistic perspective and deciding that we need options of people we can attest to their competence and their integrity and their strengths and weaknesses, you know, and then decide still that we would rather go with this one than the alternatives. That is just simply how we have found ourselves here, and we are going all the way by the grace of God. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dapo. That was fantastic. You know, Dapo says, let's put actions behind all those complaints and comments. You know, as Nigerians, we talk a lot, we complain a lot, and it takes guts for somebody to actually come out and say, okay, I'm tired of complaining, I'm tired of talking, let me do something about it. And so, yes, we all here, I guess, applaud Funso for this bold step, for taking this step in the positive and right direction. So thank you so much, Dapo. We are grateful. So, you're not just all going to be listening, no. We have polls for you. So I'm going to trigger the first poll now. You should be able to see on your screens very shortly our first poll. And it's asking, do you believe that your involvement can make a difference? Fantastic. Yes, 41 people are answering. We've got over 100 people on here. Keep going, please vote. $70. Okay. I'm about to end the poll, but we've only got 76 people participating out of over 100. Can we all see the polls? Okay, I'm not gonna flog that horse. We have an answer here. And 95% actually, 95% say they believe that their involvement can make a difference. And that is fantastic because our campaign is about belief. This campaign is about belief. People have to believe that they have a force in the race in Funso Doherty, not because he will succeed or win, but because they, each one of us, will exercise our choice in favor of what we believe in. And when we do, then he has the chance, that opportunity of actually winning that election. Okay. Thank you very much. So a lot of us share the belief that we can actually do this. Now, next we have on our program, a poetry recital. The poem is being recited by one of ours, Eyiyemi Olivia Rogbe, a class of 86, OGQC class of 86. Eyiyemi is a graduate of architecture from the University of Jos with 30 years post-experience in the fields of architecture, interior design, broadcasting as a television and radio presenter, makeovers, and dressmaking. Eyiyemi enjoys public speaking, which has seen her anchoring social events and participating in various stage plays. She has also appeared in several short movies, and her stint in broadcasting has made her a household name in the city of Lagos and the country of Nigeria as a whole. Eyeyemi will be reading to us a short poem, which we believe is actually appropriate for this occasion. And that poem has been put together by another OGQC 86 mate of ours, Dr. Ekaite Eko. After Ekaite finished at the Queen's College in 1986, she proceeded to study medicine, a desire that she had had since she was a child. She considers herself a Malabrese, a graduate of the University of Calabar. And after her internship in UCH Ibadan and youth service, she followed her desire and entered the convent. She says, being a sister has widened her experience and shaped her way of being. She is a passionate obstetrician gynecologist and has been in the medical practice for 30 years. Her practice has spanned both Nigeria and internationally. And Ekaite is very passionate about the woman child. She has held various leadership positions in the medical world as well as the religious sphere. Another passion, which is what brings us here today, that Ekaite has, is words. She loves reading and writing, and she's drawn to articles that are well articulated and creatively expressed. She enjoys using words in as many ways as possible to express especially the courage and resilience, joy and grief of the human race. She believes that life is all about stories, and that stories are the best conveyors of truth and wisdom. So I hope that this one will convey the truth and the wisdom that it is intended to convey.
I walked through the streets of my mind, the highways of my comprehension, my numbness punctuated by sadness, dejectedness, heaviness. Everywhere I looked, there was death, destruction and devastation, corpses of youthful dreams thrown away with impudence, edifices of hopes lay in ruins, trees of aspirations uprooted, hard work shredded, the pieces strewn in the neighborhood, farms of ready-to-harvest confidence dug up and pooed on, rounds of live bullets had shot down the eagles of determination. The passion for transformation lay in ruins. The lion of patriotism had been gravely stabbed. The sky was hidden by thick, dark clouds arising from the wails of the bereaved. Teeth were grinding in agony, knuckles cracking in anxiety, eyes staring in shock, legs shaking in rage. The womb that was to nurture had become the gas chamber that fed its embryos lethal gas instead of life-giving oxygen. I left the street and entered an alcove to savor my despair and pick at my sores. Then I heard whispers all around me. The voices morphed into images. People. People? People? Who are you? I whispered in fear, poised to take flight from more enemies. They spoke with gentle, wounded tenderness. Shh. We are the escapees, the survivors. We are the faith tribe, the dream resuscitation army. Here, I scoffed. You really believe we will ever come out of this? You have the spunk to deceive yourself and delude me? No. This is the end. This is the ultimate defeat. No, they said. It is not, we assure you. We have been shown the blueprint. Blueprint of this devastation, this destruction, this massacre is in the design? We have a different name for this. Stop playing games, people. This is not a matter of semantics. What name? And what's in a name? Gently they spoke, with their black eyes and ugly bruises. It is about semantics, narratives, description. We call this by its true names. This that you see is not what you see. This we call rebuilding, revamping, recasting. Yeah, I scoffed again. You actually believe that? I sneered. Yet, inside of me, those names, oh, those names, they were massaging my failing muscles, reviving my comatose confidence, whispering my name with seductive persuasion. So, you believe this? My sneer had gone, replaced by a hopeful whisper. No, we don't. We don't believe. It is not just a belief anymore. It is a knowing. We have been shown. This that you see, this that you witness, this that you are part of, this is alchemy, larger than life. Adapted for QCOGA Fireside Chat with Funso and Doherty, May 2nd, 2022. This poem is by Ekaite Eko.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And yes, it is a clarion call. Thank you, Temitayo. It is a clarion call. Okay, so we will move on with that. And we have another poll. And I'm just going to share that with you now. I hope you can see that. We have another poll, and that is asking, do you plan to vote in the upcoming 2023 general elections in Nigeria? Do you plan to vote? Okay. All right, excellent. Okay. People are still voting. I am conscious of time. All right, no worries. We do have a winner anyway. 86% say that yes, they plan to vote, and 14% say, well, no, they're not planning to vote. So yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for taking part in the polls. Now, without further ado, I know you came here to hear from Orade and to hear from Funso, and the time is now. So without further ado, Dr. Orade Doherty, a US board certified pediatrician and public health physician and founder and medical director of Ingress Health Partners. She leads a team of dedicated professionals engaging high-density communities around maternal and newborn care, working with local traditional birth attendants and maternity homes to improve referral patterns and establish safe pregnancy and newborn care practices. Her 29-year professional career has spanned clinical and academic pediatrics, health and hospital systems, strengthening community development, establishing livelihoods, and the promotion of life skills in women and young people. She is a fellow and a moderator of the Africa Leadership Initiative West Africa and the Aspen Global Leadership Network. She is also a moderator of the Kashim Ibrahim Fellowship Program in Nigeria, a fellowship for young Nigerians committed to public service. She is, of course, married to Funso Doherty, and they have 3 amazing children. Orade, you are very, very, very welcome.
Thank you, Titi.
Thank you. Okay, all right. People are waiting. They want to hear from you. So my first question to you today is, tell us a little bit about what you're hoping to achieve through this Fireside Chat.
So thank you, Titi, and welcome again, everyone. I'm hoping today to get the wider QC community, as well as our family and friends who have joined us, to join the people, if they're not already part of them, who, in spite of having been disappointed repeatedly in the past 20 plus years at the polls and or by the governance of the leadership that we have, for them to believe one more time and trust once again that we can together make a difference. It is this you spoke to earlier where you said this is about believing. Should we attain this, we would be on our way to speaking to like-minded individuals. We find we happen to be among the most cynical of Nigerians, those of us who find ourselves in the middle class. And that's what this poem by Kaite spoke to, where people are not certain that they should or can hope again because they don't want to be disappointed. But there is a spark of hope. Dako mentioned it. We have the confidence that together, given our numbers, and I'm sure Funso will speak to this, given the number of us who have hitherto not participated actively, if we all decided that we would, then we could turn things around for good and for better. So I'm hoping tonight to begin to stir the embers of faith and hope one more time in our community.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Right. So I'm sure a lot of people are thinking what I'm thinking, that Funso is not a politician, to the best of my knowledge anyway. And he has no political, I mean, Dakbo attested to that as well. And you know, you also talked about the Nigerian factor. And so to the best of our knowledge, he has no political support or base. He is not in the public space per se, and it's safe to say that he isn't a public figure as such. And Lagos State has been governed by candidates from the APC for the last 23 years. And it is our belief, well, the general belief, general consensus, that this will probably continue. It's almost a done deal. So, Orode, why should we support Funso? Why should anybody here today support Funso?
Thank you, Titi. So, at the risk of sounding like I am, I have put on rose-tinted glasses, which is what Funso usually accuses me of. There's something that we need very much in Nigeria today, and what it is leadership. We need leadership of a certain caliber. We need leadership that demonstrates courage, integrity, competence. We need leadership that applies wisdom. Funso epitomizes integrity and competence. He's been in the private sector for all of, I think, 30 years. And without a doubt, this is the kind of leadership we need today. And if you think about the parable of the talents, why would you not bring your capacity to the table at a time when it is much needed? So on his side, that's what he's doing. And on our side, what we're saying is, if this capacity is much needed and it is present, then why shouldn't we go for it? So why Funso? Because he does epitomize all of these attributes. And these attributes together have inspired young and older people with whom he has worked in the past, and continue to inspire people even when he's no longer in their immediate vicinity. And leadership that inspires, according to the conversations of leadership that have gone on now for thousands of years, is exactly the kind of leadership that will make a difference in a country where people have lost trust and hope. What we need now is leadership that inspires people to be the best versions of themselves. And I believe Funso represents such leadership, and it's sorely needed across Nigeria. And we'll start with Lagos.
Fantastic. Yes. So yeah, leadership that inspires people to be the best versions of themselves, to attain their fullest potential. Thank you so much. That's an inspiring response. And I would expect nothing else from you, you know, because they say behind every successful man, there is a rather successful woman. So thank you for that answer. But off the back of that, so why do you think that Funso has any chance whatsoever of scaling the various hurdles to become the governor of Lagos State in 2023?
So thank you. Basirat Giwa wrote here, I posted that my involvement can make a difference. And she put my involvement in quotes. I want to add that in quotes again, only if fresh entrants into the political arena can dare to think outside the box, mobilize our youths in their millions, mobilize the labor force who have woken up to use their voting power, and finally mobilize the millions of indifferent intelligentsia. With the new electoral law that makes electoral malpractice difficult, it's very possible to achieve the desired change. I agree with her. I believe that this movement to elect Funso Doherty into the office of the governor of Lagos State in 2023 can mobilize young people in their millions. I believe that we can engage civil society, people in public service, people who otherwise have never engaged in voting or even been interested in politics, but who are fed up. People are tired of the state of affairs. And right now, this is a good time, probably the best time that is still in front of us, for us to ask people to believe one more time. And the evidence is there. Funso has run successful businesses. He has treated people with respect every day of his life. He recognizes the importance of everybody. He listens to people and he listens to everyone, but does not get confused. He can see what needs to be done, and he is courageous enough to take these actions. People who have worked with him before will tell you Funso will do the difficult things. So if you want someone to get up now in Lagos and begin to do the difficult things, this is the person you want to vote into office. If you want someone to get up in Lagos now and do the things that matter to for the vast majority of people and will serve the interests of the people and not the interests of a few people or a few corrupt leaders, this is the man you want to elect to office. So for me, it's quite clear that Funso can win, Funso can mobilize people. He will be doing it alone because there are teams of people like yourself, Titi, and many of us on this call who will sound the loudest, I believe, raise the sound loud and far and say, here's a man we know, somebody who does the right thing consistently. He's somebody whom you can tell the time with. He will do the right thing for us in Lagos. We need to give him the opportunity to do so. And the way to do so is to get up and come out and vote. So I believe that we can mobilize youth, we can mobilize the labor, we can mobilize public servants. We can mobilize the very young who have never voted before.
Thank
and
you,
with
my sister.
all on our side, we can do the right thing.
I can feel your passion. If I allow you, you will just go on. But we want to hear from Funso himself. So yes, I think it's time to, even Funso is like, all that's your passion. You've transferred it. He's like, let me talk now, my wife. Myself, I want to express passion. So without further ado, you know, I will bring to all of you the man of the hour, the man you've wanted to wait for, to hear from. But I'll just tell you a little bit more about Funso. Funso, as we all know, is the gubernatorial aspirant on the platform of African Democratic Congress, ADC, an accomplished, I mean, already has said everything, an accomplished professional, you know, with a distinguished record spanning more than 3 decades. He was born in 1968 to the Doherty family of Lagos. His father, Dr. Henry Doherty, was one of the early Nigerian medical doctors, and his grandfather, J.H. Doherty, popularly known as the Prince Merchant of Alakoro, was a well-known businessman and philanthropist in the old Lagos. He recently completed his tenure as the Managing Director and CEO of Pensions Alliance Limited, PAL Pensions, one of Nigeria's foremost pension fund managers, where he led the nationwide team overseeing a large portfolio of assets. In his extensive experience, Funso has held a number of positions in leading foreign and local firms, including Goldman Sachs and Company and PNC Advisors in the United States of America, as well as Arthur Andersen, now KPMG in Nigeria. Funso holds a Master's in Business Administration, MBA from Harvard University, and a BSc in Accounting from the University of Lagos. Funso is a co-founding trustee of the CFA Society Nigeria, and a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. You all know he is married to Dr. Orode Doherty, nee Williams, a pediatrician of repute and an OGQC. So welcome, Funso.
Thank you very much, Titi.
Yes, yes, everybody wants to hear your voice.
Hello to everyone.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So Funso, you are now, already they've said, already has spoken. We want to hear your own passion now. So on the 22nd of March, 2022, to be precise, you accepted and joined the ADC to run for governor of Lagos State. Tell us why. Why ADC and why now?
Okay, thank you very much, Titi. And I hope you can all hear me clearly.
Loud and clear.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And let me start off by saying a big thank you to QC Class of 86 for this opportunity, for taking the time to put this together. Very professionally done so far. And we really welcome the opportunity to share our vision and what we're setting out to do at this important time in our history as a nation. So you asked the question, why ADC, why now? And I think the place to start is really from around the why. So like you have read the book by Simon Sinek, and you know, it's always important to start from why. I think already has spoken about it to a degree. Fundamentally, I have just increasingly come to the notion that the problem we face as a nation, as a state, is essentially a dearth of principled leadership in the public space. And principled leadership in the public space essentially is leadership that demonstrates the right character and the right competence, and essentially understands that public office is a sacred trust, and understands that the discharge of that trust is paramount. And in the democratic tradition, if you are a leader of a people in a democracy, you are essentially signed up to the notion of a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It seems to me that what we have largely experienced and been subject to and been the victims of is a government of the people, by some people, for themselves. And I think that the evidence and the outcome of such an arrangement for a sustained period of time can only be stagnation and retrogression. When we look at the public space in Lagos in particular, we have essentially been run by the same administration, either in one guise or the other, for what is almost a quarter century. By 2023, when we do the elections, it will be 24 years, which essentially is practically a generation, right? Because generations are typically defined in terms of 30 years. So we've been essentially administered by one group for a generation. And we can point to nations that have made quantum leaps in the span of a generation. Those examples exist. So when we look at ourselves today and we think back, to the fact that, this journey started in 1999 and we have essentially given a generation to the current leadership, the question that we all have to answer is, are we going to stick around for another generation? And we say no. And the path to that in a democracy is only by contesting for office. There's nowhere where they say, Mr. Doherty, Mr. Adeleye, you didn't contest for office, but we love you. Come and occupy this public office. In a democracy, we contest for office. And that is why I have stepped up. I believe many like me will step up. Actually, in 2023, I think we will see a resurgence. And I think that we'll see more of that going forward. It should be a normal, transition for people who have accomplished in the private space to move with that competence, that character, that record of integrity into the public space. This is what happens in other democracies, and it should not be strange here. So with that as a background, I will lead into the question of why ADC. When you talk to people about elections in Nigeria and your intention to contest for office, and in particular for what is considered as exalted an office as the governorship of Lagos, if you're not on the platform of one of the two major parties, and in fact, in the case of Lagos, if you're not on APC platform, people think that it's almost like a non-starter. But for us, the choice of a non-mainstream platform was not an accident. And the reason is because the fundamental reason for coming into this space is to accomplish change. And one of the things that we see, which is a feature I think that many of us are familiar with, is the fact that the process of emerging through one of these mainstream parties usually will mean that by the time you get there, that process would have robbed you of the agency to bring the change that is required in the public space. I think Lagos is a preeminent example of that. We have had a list of governors who have come and gone, but I don't think we can say we've had a substantial change in governance. And so it is important to avoid a Pyrrhic victory when you succeed, but the reason that brought you into the race by virtue of that process then becomes beyond your grasp. I think it was clear to us that we'll take our chances on a platform where we can have impact, where we can shape the platform. It may not be, the most, the biggest platform out there or the one that is most recognizable, but we believe our message is a disruptive one. We believe it's an innovative one. We believe that the structures, which you often hear people talking about structures and why the mainstream parties have structures and why you can only succeed with those structures. For us, the people are our structures. We will ride on the back of the support of the people. We will sell our message to the people, and we will ask them to own the movement. And if they buy into our message, and they take ownership of the movement, we will succeed. On the other hand, if they don't, we will have an uphill task. But part of what we're doing here today is to sell that message and to say that the power to accomplish is most certainly in the hands of you and in the hands of me. And finally, with respect to why now, well, I would ask why not now? Indeed, I would say that I actually think that we are at a better point in time for this change than I can remember. I think the context is suited to it. I think the psyche of the electorate is in a place where they are receptive to a message of change. I think people are fed up, whether they are rich, middle class, or poor, whether they are old, middle-aged, or young. People are fed up. The only people who are not fed up are those that are benefiting directly from government in ways that the rest of us do not. And so we think that this is a time, and also, and I will add this and close with it. Part of any successful strategy is timing, and timing relates to your own timing and also the circumstances of the competition. I think the competition is in a divided state. There's confusion in the camps. Anybody who is following what's going on in the two main parties, whether on the national scale or even within the states, will see that there's great disarray there. And part of it also is because people are not united. There are no values, common values and ethics that are driving them. And when you have that, you have a marriage of convenience, which will have periodic periods of discord, which is, I think, what we're seeing. So from a timing perspective, also in answer to your question, why now? We think the time is actually a perfect timing. Well, no timing is perfect, but it's great timing.
Yes,
so
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, Funso. I loved it when you said, why now? But why not now? Exactly. Why not now? So yes, somebody says motivation gets you going, motivation gets you started, consistency keeps you going. But another person says that if you're waiting to get motivated, because some of us don't get motivated, you just have to start. And that's why Nike has the slogan, just do it. Just get up and do it. And yeah, from everything you've said, it's like everybody is saying, complaining. And you are just getting up and you're doing something about it. So if you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A. I've got a question here from Yemisi Ayeni. Basically, Yemisi wants to know why you've started from gubernatorial candidate when, you could have started from the House of Senate and worked your way up to governor. Why did you start straight, your foray into politics at the governorship level? And she wants to know, is this the best approach? Give us your thinking behind that.
Okay, thank you. So I think that, there is, you can debate as to what is the appropriate level or what is not. For me, fundamentally, I looked at it from the perspective of what change did I think was needed and where did I think change which seat did I think was most consistent with that kind of change. And so there was a process that led me to arrive at the governorship seat. I think at the local government levels, so now I'll just take you through that process very quickly so that you understand how I got to the decision. It wasn't a random decision. I think if you look at the local government levels, to me, I think that if you are really looking to bring change, I do not see that and meaningful change. I do not see that, to me, as a place for me to start. There might be folks who might view it that way. But bear in mind that the local government elections, even though they are closest to the people, those elections are actually managed by a state organ, the Lagos State, in the case of Lagos, Independent Electoral Commission, which you can then ask the question, should the eye of independence be there? Because how independent is that commission, right? So you are essentially contesting in an election which is overseen and monitored and run by the state. For me, that's problematic. So now, if you go to the elections which are governed by a national body, INEC, you have basically the legislative arms, then you have the governorship, and then you have the presidential. Now, the question is, if you want to bring meaningful change, where can you bring that change? Which is the office that gives the scope, right, for those changes? The legislative offices, they are noble offices in the democratic tradition. They are. However, we do know the way our legislative bodies in Nigeria have generally operated. If you go to the Federal House, you are probably one of, I don't know, 400 and something people, most of whom are not there with a similar motivation and intention as you are, right? And the same is true if you get into the Senate, right? If you've interacted with them, I have done on multiple occasions. Yemisi herself knows that I have, as the leader of an industry trade group, interacted with these legislative bodies. 80% of the time they spend is doing things other than what they were sent there to do, right? And so the effect of your passion and drive for change, I think, could be better put elsewhere. Now, the governorship seat, if you understand the polity of Nigeria, is a very impactful seat, right? Because you are not at the national level, you are close to the people. You are not too low in the totem pole so that the state controls the elections that get you there. And most of the actions that a governor takes, most of the things that have affected people, whether it's health, whether it's education of their children, the traffic situation within their state, and all of those kinds of things, are things that emanate from the policy, from kind of, call it the policy file of somebody sitting in a governorship seat. So it's very important to bear that in mind when you are seeking to bring change. And the change that we need actually is not an incremental change. It is a disruptive change. The last point I would bring to mind is to say that, sometimes also when you are seeking to make it, you have to consider human nature, and you have to approach it with kind of wisdom as well. There's a change that you bring which captures the imagination of people, which gets people involved, right? So, if you said, for example, that you wanted to pursue change, radical change, by going to the House of Rep, right? Most people don't think of House of Rep, as an election that is significant. Actually, most people don't, right? Even people on this call, most people don't. It's okay, but it's not going to change people's lives. But people understand why the governorship is important. People understand deeply why the governorship is important. And so it's important when you are bringing a message of change, substantively, to pitch it at the right level. And I think, this is not about, somebody, wanting to be governor or what have you, or having a lifelong ambition of being a governor. But if you follow the logic of how we get to the decision, why it's important to run, why it's important to have a movement like this, and you follow it to its conclusion, I think then it's easier to understand why the governorship seat is an appropriate one. And by the way, and I'll close with this, most of the people you see in the public space who are contesting for that office do not have the exposure, do not have the record of the integrity and accomplishment, have not demonstrated the ability to act in an office that is powerful without the abuse of that power. So it is when we make this argument sometimes, and I understand the argument, it's the argument we would make in the private sector. But sometimes it is self-defeating because, you know, the other people that you are competing against, you know, it's not as if they, you know, they are like the most qualified people in the world. You know what I mean? They just step out there with boldness, and they are prepared to do what it takes and buy the votes and whatever, and they end up in the offices. So I think that, you know, we have to just open our eyes and not cede the space, and also not shoot ourselves in the foot on the path to winning that and contesting for that space.
Fantastic. I love, you know, the boldness, the courage, you know, the sort of like daredevilism, you know, in your voice, because really, I think a lot of us, we've just assumed that these people that are there, that have been there for the past 23 years, are the ones that are always going to be there. So I like the fact that you use that word, disruptive change, right? So thank you for answering that question. And I hope that, yeah, Missy, that satisfies that question for you. Thank you so much, Funso. You really broke it down, and it shows that you put a lot of thinking into it. So thank you. So I want to encourage everybody, if you have questions, please put it in the Q&A. We're going to try and go through as much as possible. So the next question is from Oluyomi Bolodeoku. And the question is, what's the strategy, firstly, around winning the party primaries? And in that response, when you do win that, how do you intend to win against the big wigs?
Okay, thank you. Right now, the party process is ongoing. If you look at the INEC calendar, that process essentially concludes in May. At the end of May, parties will generally have their candidates that will contest in the general election. In the case of the governorship election for ADC, in ADC, at the moment, I am the only gubernatorial aspirant on that platform. However, that window is still open and is not closed, so it is still the case that another aspirant could potentially emerge. For now, I'm the only aspirant on the platform, and our primaries will happen by the last week of May, at which point the candidature will be determined. Ongoing engagements are carrying on within the party and at both the local and the national level. And we're just deploying our internal strategy to ensure that that process is concluded as we expect. I will say that on the ADC platform, there isn't a cast in stone guarantee that no one else might emerge. So I think that's part of, I think, the process of democracy. So that's with respect to that. Now, should we successfully navigate this phase into the general sort of contest, it is very clear to us that our strategy has to be a different one from, I would say, the traditional, and certainly that's been applied by the main political parties. And that's because we're seeking to bring substantive change, move things in a direction that's, again, quite disruptive. And so we must do things differently. It's also the case that the nature of the resources that we are employing are different because, we're not bringing necessarily the treasure chests or the war chests, often funded from questionable sources, to prosecute the election, right? We're relying on more traditional, pure democratic ways of raising funding for our campaign. We know we will need resources, but traditionally, one of the things that you've seen in politics in Nigeria is what is known as money politics, right? And what does money politics mean? basically it means that a substantial portion of the electorate is induced to vote in a particular direction by monetary inducement and monetary compensation. Typically, this is targeted at people at the lowest rungs of the socioeconomic ladder, right? For whom, poverty is a real and present issue. And the reason why it costs the traditional money politics so much to prosecute elections is because you have to expend that money on a number of levels. One, you have to buy the votes, that is the actual voters. Then you have to have a mechanism that ensures that the votes that you bought actually are cast in your favor, because there's no guarantee that people will take the money and vote for you unless you police that process, right? So those people also have to be compensated, the people who sort of marshal and in fact facilitate this vote purchasing. And so by the time you roll up all of these mechanisms, and if you're going to be extreme, in some cases, people attempt to even influence the compilation and collation process, even after votes have been cast. And that's also a money exercise. So you can see very quickly how you get to billions if you are prosecuting a governorship or a presidential election. For us, our message, that is not a strategy, one that from a moral perspective is within our scope, right, in the first place. Secondly, our message is not such that it's consistent with the use of that, So for us, if you think about everything that we have said, right, it is clear that our process has to produce a winning of hearts and minds along the way, right? Because people have to be convinced of the message. People have to vote. They have to vote for a non-mainstream candidate. They have to go to the polling booth and they have to cast those votes, and they have to police those votes and ensure that they feel strongly enough about it to do that. And they have to do it knowing that the candidate is not mainstream. It may mean that their vote does not produce the winning candidate. It may mean that, but they are resolute that they will vote in favor of a candidature that they believe in, right? And if enough people do it, then it will produce a winning ticket. Let me just say in support of this that, and I've used this, and so those that have listened to me in other fora, please forgive me if you've heard this before. We should note that the total votes by which the governorship in Lagos was won in the last election was 700,000 votes. Lagos has a population of over 20 million people and a registered voter list of 6 million people. So, from a statistical perspective, you have far more people by a margin of 5-1 not voting than you have people voting. And so our message, needs to be carried, and we expect that ultimately for us to succeed, we may win some of the existing voters as part of that 1 million, but we also need to convince a number of the apathetic voters. And we are quite sure that a significant part of that apathy is because people do not believe that they have a horse in the race that they believe in, and that our movement can essentially give them that option. And so our strategy is to disseminate that message, disseminate that voice. I can get into more detail about it. Hopefully not too much detail to divulge strategies to the competition, but essentially we have what we call a communities-based strategy. And it's a strategy of developing that message across communities, not just geographic communities, but communities of different sorts. We'll call it professional communities, communities, affinity groups. This, for example, is one community. And so part of our communities-based strategy is what we're doing here today. And ultimately, communities are made up of individuals. They're made up who are themselves parts of other communities. And so our message is a message that we expect, ultimately, if it's to succeed, we will need to be a viral message that creates advocates in every community where we engage, and use those advocates as means of of spreading the message across communities. We will do the traditional thing of going to the wards and engaging communities in those wards, and we will speak to the people in those wards. And maybe I should just say this and conclude on this question here, that many people ask the question, the grassroots. What about the grassroots? The message for the grassroots. And I have been in the communities and I have addressed this grassroots electorate of voters. And the truth of the matter is that the message is delivered differently, but at the heart of it is the same message, right? So you may be speaking Pidgin, you may be speaking Yoruba, you may be speaking a mix of those things. But at the heart of it, people understand that they have not been well governed. They understand that their leadership is not acting in their interests.
Yes.
They understand that they've been given a short end of the stick, and they understand that their conditions under which they live is directly related to the actions of leadership and the superintending of their affairs and their resources by folks who don't have their interest at heart. They understand it. They understand it. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm feeling your passion. I'm feeling it. I'm really feeling it. It's like if I leave you, you will just talk. But these questions are just coming in fast and furiously. And I really want us to go through as many as possible. And there's one that really caught my eye, and it's by Kayode Ogumowo. I hope I pronounced that well. Kayode says that he noticed that the Vice President, Oshimbaju, appointed you as boss of PENCOM. So it's obvious you are with Oshimbaju. So he wants to understand why the deflection to ADC, if I can call it that, and not stick with your man, Oshimbaju, at the APC. So can you clarify for us, first of all, whether you were appointed or not appointed and why the deflection?
Okay. So I was nominated to the position of Director General of the National Pension Commission. I ran an operator. In fact, I've run two operators in the pension fund space, two pension fund companies. And so I was appointed, not as a political appointment, but I was, I have a technical track record in that industry, almost in the way you would produce a central bank governor from a career banker. That appointment was never finalized because our names, and it was a whole slate, by the way, all the commissioners. I was DG, there was a chairman, and there was a whole slate of commissioners. That whole appointment was caught up in the wrangling within the administration. If you remember, this was at a time when the vice president was acting president, and you had basically a situation where you had almost like two power blocks, and I'm just going to be quite as I understand it, because I also was an outsider in this process. You had almost like two power blocks within the government, where you had the people of the chief of staff to the president, while the president was away, who wanted to maintain a certain power block, and then the acting president, who was substantive, but whose wings it appeared folks wanted to clip. But I would say, so that our names were never sent, the whole slate of us were never sent to the Senate for confirmation hearings until the president came back. And as another example of how, parties that come together as a marriage of convenience can create dysfunction within themselves. For a period of almost 2 years, that agency, the National Pension Commission, was left without a slate of commissioners and a DG. That would be like running a bank without a board of directors and just leaving the general managers in charge of the bank. And that continued for almost 2 years. And that tells you what happens when you sort of have a coalition of strange bedfellows, which is essentially what we had. I just want to say, and this is a challenge to whoever is asking the question, I actually didn't get the name, but to say that, I just want to say that, you know, the notion that I'm obviously with Osinbajo, I think, I don't know where that comes from. I think that there is no such conclusions should be drawn. I have no special relationship with the vice president. I was called and appointed to the role. It's not something that I sought. I was sitting in my house when I got a phone call. And there may be some people on this call who can attest to that. And it was something that it was quite reluctantly that I even pursued it. So for me, the question of, you know, whether there's been a shift away or not does not arise because, you know, I have never been a member of APC or anything like that. It just does not arise. So I hope that clarifies it.
I think you have clarified it sufficiently. So I think if anybody has it in their mind that Funso and VP Osinbajo are related in some way, shape, or form, Funso has just laid it there that nope, we do not know each other, and I was not appointed by him.
I know who he is, and he knows. He probably knows who I am. He may know who I am, but we're not buddies.
No,
not that I have anything against him. You know,
but it's the fact.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
We're stating facts here. So thank you for clearing that one up. And I will go back to the questions again. And we have another one here. So we've heard about everything, your thoughts, your passion and everything. Now let's talk about you as governor of Lagos State. So if it is not an ADC president, how would you navigate this big issue?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. Well, I think maybe I would say, I actually don't see it as such a big issue to be a governor that is from a party that is other than the party of the president, right? I don't really see that it is a fundamental problem. Because I think that constitutionally, we have constitutional provisions that, you know, create separation of powers. There's the exclusive list, there's the concurrent list that determines who has the power to legislate on which matters. And, you know, the problem of, or the ability to bring leadership within states is not a function of being constrained by federal rules most of the time. It's not. It's really around the quality of leadership within the states. This is particularly the case in Lagos because we are much less dependent on federal resources than most other states. So if you look at Lagos's sources of revenue, our internally generated revenue is probably about 70% of our revenue base, right? So we are far less dependent, and the other one goes up and comes down depending on oil and all of that. So, you know, Lagos has the resources to do what Lagos needs to do. If those resources are well managed in the interest of the people, not by conflicted leadership who are taking decisions based on what's in their interest or what's in the interest of those that are close to them, but in the interest of what is best for the people, I think we can do a whole lot in Lagos, far more than many states, I think, are in a position to do. So to me, I really don't see that question as a big problem, to be honest. I think there are broader constitutional issues which we have to address as a people, you know, around what should this split be between matters on which the federal should legislate and matters on which the state should legislate, and to what extent do we have devolution, to what extent does power sit in the center or sit in the state? I mean, those are ongoing discussions that we need to have, right? And it is cast, they're very different terms that are used to describe that debate. And it's a healthy debate and we need to have it. I think that unless proven otherwise, powers should be devolved, unless there are, material reasons why, a federal mandate on those powers is justified. So my default is to start from kind of devolution and then make the exceptions at the federal level for reasons that are cogent and agreed by all to be valid. So this is how I would think about that question.
Awesome. Thank you so much. A lot of thought again gone into that. So Funso, I hope you have a glass of water there. I'm just going to give you a little break whilst we go on the third poll, because I really want to know the answer to this question, considering the chat, the friends in the chat, and the belief that we're sharing, the inspiration that has gone on. So I'm asking a question. Do you have your permanent voters card, the PVC? Please answer. You should have the poll in front of you. How many of us have our PVC? Okay, there's 148 attendees on this one. And only 59 people are answering me. But I can see Funso has had a drink of water. Let him calm down a little bit, because that passion, I'm feeling the heat here. Okay, so at least we've got 50%. Yes, now we're on 50% have responded to our poll. I know all of you are just waiting to hear Funso, so it's okay. It's all right. But I'm going to end the poll now. 81 out of 54% responded. And of that 54%, you should have the result on your screen now. Of that 54%, 59%, so 49 people out of 83 say they do, and 34 people say they don't. I'm not going to say more than that. I'm not going to say more than that. Okay, thanks for responding to that poll. So we're going to carry on. Yeah, it's you. It's all about you today. So I've got another question here from, there's so many here. So there's one from Omo Shalewa Fajobi. And she says, from the play of past politics, fair or not, elections are typically won within the lower class people, not necessarily because of who they are, but because they show up, they turn up. This is a great start, what we're doing here today, engaging QCOGA, but what are the plans for ensuring the middle upper class citizens see reasons enough to register and actually vote? And you see, that poll actually sort of reflects what she's saying there, where we say 49 out of 83 have their PVCs, 34 out of 83 do not have their PVCs. So please, Funso, how are you going to make sure, what are your plans for ensuring that the middle upper class citizens have enough reasons to register and actually vote?
Okay, thank you. And it's a good question. I think the number is almost like 60-40 who had their PVCs, maybe 58% versus 42% who did not have. Now, whether that actually is reflective of the larger population is actually something that's worth considering, really, because if you think about Lagos and the population of 20 to 25 million, and the fact that we have only 6 million registered voters, that tells you that even the registered voters is well below the eligible voters, right? So even though it is the case that in the lower socioeconomic categories, they disproportionately show up on election day. I think it's probably also not the case that, I think that apathy probably also exists at that level as well, except that because of the inducement factor, I think it swings it in favor of those folks. So that's point number one. Point number two is to say that, you know, part of what we're doing here is to also spread that message amongst the folks who are not in the bottom rung. And by the way, it's not only the elites, and many of the people on this call are in a way or the other are elites. But it's not just the elites, right? It is, if you take out the bottom rung, and then you now take the next 2 or 3 rungs from the bottom, those are also important in the voting process, right? And you probably find that there are a number of people in there where you have numbers, more numbers than you have amongst the elites, many of whom are also not voting because, you know, they may be artisans, they may be whatever, they may not really be swayed by, you know, 500 naira, what have you, but they may not see that there is a compelling reason to go out on election day because they don't see candidate A as being different from candidate B or different from candidate C. And by the way, that also, I think, is partly reflected even in amongst the elite, right? Because sometimes you're not doing something is a function of the value that you place on doing that thing. In other words, if you think that something is meaningful and you're committed to it, you know, you may walk 5 miles to go and do it. But, you know, no matter how easy something is made for you, right? If they put the polling unit outside your front gate, right? If you think that, you know, that you don't have, I mean, this is just a waste of time, you will not go there. You won't get up from your couch. So I think part of what we're doing also is to let people know that, look, there is a credible alternative. There is leadership that is principled, has demonstrated integrity, is out there to do the right thing, understands what it means to put a team together to ensure that government as a whole has all the various competencies that it needs to deliver on its mandate, to work in the interest of the people, and to deliver the promise of democracy. And that message, if carried, and I'm hopeful, by the way, that as a result of this evening's interaction, we would have created also some advocates, right, who also would also be carriers of this message. And ultimately, I think if some people leave this call with a resolve that on election day, they're going to vote for the candidate that they believe represents their interests. And, you know, ideally, I would love if it's me, but if we leave this call and people have that conviction, which they did not have prior to this conversation, I think, you know, I think we would have made significant progress.
Fantastic. So I just want to thank you for that detailed response. And I just want to ask everyone, please bear with us. You know, Funso is trying his best to give us as much detailed information as possible. And we have so many questions in here, and we will go through each one of them, I promise. So the next one I want to share with Funso is a question by Adesheye Akinshete. Adesheye says, the strongest APC showings were in Alimosho, Ajeromi, Ikorodu, Koshofe, Mushi, and Shomolu. All these areas need some monetary incentives to motivate the people. Considering this, what is your strategy to take votes from those areas? Can elites be trusted to be committed to the electoral process? I think you've answered that about elites, but I think the main question here is that what is your strategy to take the votes from those areas?
Thank you. Our strategy to take the votes from those areas is, in principle, not different from our other strategy in other areas, which is essentially to carry the message to the people. And remember, I said that the message is not a different message, it is delivered differently, right? Even in these communities that you talk about, whether it's Badagry, whether it's Shomolu, whether it's Jeremy, whether it's Alimosho, right? There will always be people who will be in it for the inducement, right? But there are many people, these 5 million people that are not voting, don't think that those 5 million people are elites. They are not, right? There are a lot of people in the lower socioeconomic category in those numbers as well. You know, and there are many people who you talk to and they will just tell you that, you know what, they just think the process doesn't work. And they're not out there to go and sell their votes, but they don't believe in any of the candidates. And our job is to sell that message and to get those people also to make the conscious choice. And bear in mind that Lagos is a cosmopolitan city. So this is a strategy that is more likely to work in Lagos, probably than any other state across the country, at least today. Even the people who don't have high levels of formal education in Lagos are exposed, right? Most of them have access to internet. Most of them have, I was telling, you know, a friend who was visiting me this morning that, you know, my driver follows me on Instagram. I was a big Instagram person, maybe not a big social media person generally anyway, but certainly not Instagram, you know, prior to, you know, this whole political run. But Instagram in particular, I joined of recent. And within a day or so of my joining, my driver was following me on Instagram, right? So he obviously was on Instagram before me. You see what I mean? So these folks are, they're not unenlightened. They're not ignorant completely. They are exposed, right? They may not have high levels of formal education, but they're exposed. And so I think that, and you know, that people in Shomolu and these other places require inducement, I think it's true only of a small group within those communities. I think it's only true. I think it's disproportionately overblown. I mean, this whole money politics that we're talking about, at the end of the day, delivered only in aggregate 1 million votes, of which the number of elites and people of higher socioeconomic who didn't collect money. I voted in all previous elections. I didn't collect money from anybody. I'm sure many of us here did.
Absolutely.
You know, so yeah.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying, Funso, is that it's about our values and our beliefs. And I think that is a central theme I'm hearing about your campaign, is about sharing our values and living our values. You know, I always say to people that before you leave your house, you need to settle within yourself what your values are, so that when you go outside your house, because our values drive our decisions, you have to know what those values are, so that when you go outside your house, if somebody is offering you money, you know definitely if money is not one of your values, integrity is probably one of your values, then you're not going to accept that money. So I think values, as Funso has said, cuts across every socioeconomic status, whether you are what we consider elite or, you know, one of those areas. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Now, the other question, and what a lot of people want to know, and this one is particularly from Kwame Adadevo. So Kwame asks, what are the core plans of ADC and Funso for Lagos State? What are those disruptive ideas you and the party have to make the changes needed in the state come into being?
Okay, thank you. I will, you know, it's a good question, and I will kind of run through sort of laying out the framework. So the first thing, which flows from the central motivation for seeking the office. And it's a foundational thing, is government and public sector reform. So if we're elected, a government that I lead in Lagos will be a transparent government. It will be an accountable government. The affairs of government will be transparently run. It will be a government that that does not allow for conflicts of interest in the operation of government business by public office holders. The same codes of conduct that we hold people to in the highest and most ethical of private sector organizations, I see no reason why we shouldn't have those standards in the public. And indeed, those standards actually exist if you go and look at the rules and the books in the public sector. Mm. They are just not taken seriously and they're not enforced. And we will take them seriously and we will enforce them. As a public servant who is in a position of trust, if you abuse that trust by undertaking things that are, by being conflicted in your approach to it and benefiting directly from some of these things in a way that is not allowed by the code of conduct, we will enforce it against such officers. And we'll carry that from the top all the way down. Part of the reason I think why you have what you have is that people who are in glass houses cannot throw stones. Mm. And so if you are in a position of leadership and you are culpable of some of these things, it's difficult. And if you're not leading by example, it's also difficult to insist on some of these things. And I think that at all levels of leadership, we'll insist that people must follow. So government, public sector reform, transparency, accountability, rule of law, order in government business, right? These are all things that are important. Now, things like meritocracy, very important. Now, as part of that, and this is carrot and stick, it is important to ensure that public servants are well compensated. If you are an officer of Lagos State government or a Lagos State government agency, you should be well paid. There's no reason why you cannot be well paid. There's no reason, right? If we're managing our resources well. And there may be a process to get to that point that may involve, certain actions that we'll have to take. But that is the direction we will be headed in, so that people are well compensated. And then you have the moral authority to insist that people are, approach their jobs with the highest levels of integrity and probity, right? If you're not paying people, and then you have this boju thing where, people are not paid, but, they make up the compensation, by extorting it or whatever from other means. And, that's not a sustainable thing, and we will attack it, right? Things that we do not, and we've run private sector organizations, we've had these rules, conflict of interest. It's not as if people, are not, it's not as if people are not, have the potential to be corrupt in the private sector. It's just that the rules are there and they know they won't get away with it. Some do, but in many organizations that pride themselves on operating ethically, they won't get away with it. And therefore you enforce that way. Now, this is important because it is fundamental, and it's like a cancer, which then affects all of the other policy areas. So it's foundational, and it's sort of the foundation for the other things that we'll be doing. But then you now move into the policy areas. So what are some of these policy areas? I'll just highlight a few. One, we think it's important for government to be a supportive partner to private sector businesses, particularly small and medium-scale businesses, because these are the businesses that employ, people. They employ, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe a dozen people, right? Government cannot employ all these people, right? Government cannot just create jobs. Government has to create the environment for jobs to be created. And one of the ways is to support small and medium scale businesses. Don't allow government agencies to be predatory in their activities towards small businesses that are just trying to find their feet. Yes, they should follow the rules, but let's not overburden them with unnecessary regulations, unnecessary strictures that are aimed not at even keeping them to comply, but just aimed to make them, or to have an opportunity to extort certain things from them. So all of those loopholes, I think, would need to be addressed so that we can have an environment that supports and creates an ease of doing and running businesses, particularly small businesses. Because Lagos, at the end of the day, is a commercial hub, and that's what will create the jobs and help us to find employment for folks. Then, in health, I mean, I could go on and on. In health, this is an area where, we have a young population. So if I take health and education together, the median age in Nigeria is about 18. Think about that. Half of the population is less than 18. Half of the population is above 18. And we know the kind of population we have in Lagos. So you have to be very focused on health. And in our case, we think it's particularly important to focus on two things. We call it a barbell approach. Not that we won't focus on all the others, but it's particularly important to focus on primary health care, maternal health, newborn health, child health, where we are seeing a lot of mortality generally in Nigeria. And Nigeria, by the way, it actually skews global numbers on some of these things when you bring in Nigeria's numbers, right? Skews negatively, by the way, not positively. And then on the other end of the spectrum, things like critical care, emergency care, that's where we have gaps. We do a reasonable job of managing chronic diseases and so on, because there you have time, high blood pressure, whatever, you're managing the condition. But critical care, emergency care, ensuring we have the right facilities, those facilities are well manned, managed, supervised, there's blood, there's equipment, and so on. Lagos is not a huge state. If you have a few of these facilities in strategic locations, right, and a logistical mechanism for ensuring that people get to those centers quickly when there's a need to, we can basically save a lot of lives in Lagos. Education, there's so much to do. It's all about quality. I don't want to talk too long, but quality in education is a huge problem.
I know if I let you, I know your plan is like this long. And if I let you, but I'm conscious of time. And, I don't want us to go longer than 8 p.m. to be precise. That would have been 2 hours that we started this program. So I just want to thank you so much for sort of detailing your plan. And I'm so grateful that you went into the health sector, because that's a big concern of so many of us, where in the Nigeria of today, even our leaders are traveling abroad to get themselves checked, even ordinary checkups to get themselves checked. Not even talk about when they're sick or whatever. So I know from everything you've said, and I hope it satisfies the people that have asked, because we have a lot of questions here asking about your plans. What are your plans for Nigeria, for Lagos? There's a question here. It's an interesting one, and it's from one of us, Kofu Awanuga. She says, do you already have a deputy governor to run with?
The answer to that is no, that choice has not been made. And so it's something that we're still considering, and there are a range of considerations which we need to, as you know, would need to be taken into account in reaching a decision around that matter. Let's just say that I will just say a few things. It's important that first of all, the hallmarks of what we consider good leadership have to be central. So character and competence are important. We think it's also important that we have a diverse team, because diversity, in a sense, also improves the quality of decisions in leadership. And we've seen that in various leadership capacities that we've participated in. We think it's also important that leadership is representative, right, of the electorate and where capacities lie, whether that on whatever dimension, whatever demographic dimension you can think about. So it's important to have also a diverse ticket that delivers all of these central capacities that we talk about. So we don't have a decision today, but I think ultimately when that decision is made, I think it's a decision that will resonate with people.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So you're hearing it here. If you want to apply for that position, they didn't send me, but if you want to apply, Funso is here. Put in your applications, but you have to share the same values. You have to have a PVC. You have to believe that this is actually possible. You have to have that spirit of being a disruptor. So yes, thank you very much. I'm sorry to say, considering the time, that we're not going to be able to go through all the questions here, but I'm sure the members of the campaign committee have taken a note of all the other questions that we have. This was just a wonderful and fantastic discussion. Thank you so much. Funso, thank you, Orade. We're really grateful to the campaign committee. You've answered most of everything that we have here. And without further ado, I've been seeing in the chats, how to get involved. But we want to hear from Titi Pack so that everyone will leave this place knowing exactly what to do. So please, Titi, tell us, how can the people get involved?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, my sisters, our sisters and brothers in arms, I have to say. We realize that what we've set out to do is not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. But I want to say to those of us looking for a credible alternative to what has been in existence for the last 20 plus years, here is our golden opportunity. As Funso said earlier, we are not prosecuting this endeavor, the usual way. The people are our structures, you are our structures. Here we see a man who has competence, who has character, who has courage. And we hope that we have won your hearts and minds today, this evening. And here are 5 simple ways that you can support. First is to get your PVC. Without a PVC, we all know we are not going anywhere. I know this sounds easy, but for some of us, getting a PVC is not easy. So I want to say, be dogged about getting your PVC. If you didn't get it the last time, go back and reapply and make sure you get your power to make a change. The second thing we're going to ask of you is that you get your household to get their PVCs. We don't intend to buy votes, but we want to win people's hearts. We want you to be our ambassadors and take this message to your households, your cooks, your drivers, your nannies, everybody that you come across. Take this message to them that we do have a credible alternative and ask them to get their own power to vote as well. Also, hopefully on the screen now, you can see a QR code, which you can scan. This QR code takes you to a link tree where you find details of Funso's social media handles. We ask that you like and you follow Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. The code also takes you to the website where you can get more information, such as how to make a financial donation. Yes, we need money to prosecute. So we ask that you make a financial donation through the website. And lastly, if you do have the appetite for it, we ask that you volunteer. You sign up to be a volunteer through the website. We promise we will not inundate you. We will engage with you at the level that you want to be engaged at. But we want to be able to count that we have you guys who have bought into the vision, and we're talking about a man, and we're talking about a movement, not necessarily a party now. We want to make a change. So we thank you very much for your time this evening, and we look forward to engaging with you further. Thank you.
Thank you, Titi. Thank you. Okay. Sorry, I just want to be sure I've got everything here. Okay, thank you, Titi. Thank you, thank you. So, Titi has spoken how to get involved. Please get your PVCs, get your households to get your PVCs, get your friends, your family to get their PVCs. Word of mouth has always been the best form of advertisement. So please join us, share, with everything that has been shared today. I hope you're inspired. Eleanor Roosevelt says one's philosophy is not best expressed in words. It is expressed in the choices that one makes. In the long run, we shape our lives and we shape ourselves by those choices. The choices we make are ultimately our own responsibility. Today, you have been informed, motivated, and inspired. So let's use this to make our choice for Lagos. Thank you very much. I'm now going to call on Gloria Ebedi to give us the vote of thanks and the closing remarks.
On behalf of QCOG Class of 86 Steering Committee, it is my privilege to express our gratitude to everyone for taking the time out today of your busy schedules to be present. I acknowledge the contributions of those who worked really hard to make this webinar possible. I especially like to thank today's speakers for a very insightful session. I must mention a deep sense of appreciation to governorship aspirant Funso Doherty for answering the call of duty. Together, we can do more. We can be more. Thank you and good evening. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.